Although Max Verstappen and Red Bull had defeated Norris and McLaren in a fierce battle for the Drivers' Championship, the four-time world champion believed that several aspects of their rival's vehicle went slightly beyond the bounds of the law. Permitted by the FIA's rulebook, even though the governing body ruled that everything was lawful, some of their acts raised serious concerns about whether or not they had been taken with the intention of settling things down, rather than causing scandals and chaos in such a competitive environment. It is safe to say that Red Bull and McLaren have provided a very interesting season in 2024, even though in all honesty, a lot was left on the table and Norris could have done much more from his side to make it even more competitive and down to the wire. However, according to Vapin, the majority of the season saw some irregularities in terms of the legality. If this is the reality, what is in store for us in 2025? And more importantly, can McLaren get away with these loopholes they have exploited for so long? Of the car, and even though he didn't specifically blame McLaren, it doesn't take a genius to figure out whose team he was referring to. To elaborate on this, Verstappen claimed that there were background events that meant we had absolutely no chance in several races. I am certain of that, but nobody will ever acknowledge it. Naturally, after everything is said and done, the last thing you could anticipate is a team principal to publicly acknowledge that we had some unlawful parts in the bulk of the season, but that's all in the past, because, as Ston himself stated, at best, nobody from the opposing side would acknowledge that they had committed such crimes because, ultimately, it's not their job to do so. Instead, they're attempting to take advantage of the rules to the fullest extent possible, and if the FIA caught them, they should be reprimanded for their actions. The only thing the FIA did do with McLaren was ban the rear wing, not because while Piastri himself defended the car that gave a massive top-speed boost on the main straight in Baku against Lear the Monagas driver, and Perez have publicly commented on this matter, stating that the MCL38 is definitely illegal and that the mini DRS trick needs to be studied more in order to not be exploited by anyone. This is because it caused so much agitation in the paddock that even the governing body was unable to determine whether or not the deflection test is enough proof that the car is legal. Other teams in the near future, but in 2026, significant adjustments will be implemented and the DRS component will be eliminated entirely. With so many teams potentially vying for the Constructors and Drivers' Championship, 2025 is expected to be one of the most competitive seasons in the sport's history. However, the MCL38's rear wing raises many questions. This time we're talking about the front wing on the M Mercedes. The one igniting the fire with the front wing's flexibility and its attachments, McLaren appears to have followed suit. It was evident from the sky that the front wing flexes excessively in slower corners and when hitting curbs, which was one of Red Bull's biggest flaws. For this reason, Christian Horner has frequently appeared in public and requested additional FIA clearance to determine whether the sport is progressing as intended and whether the rulebook is being followed. For a long time, McLaren was the only team to have encountered no difficulties in implementing the upgrades of their car. Everything they put out there seemed to work wonders, and on circuits like Zandvoort and Singapore, which are known for their high downforce requirements. But on the other hand, this just adds to the amount of work that the FIA needs to do, and the actions that they have taken thus far are not really convincing that they fully understand how a car operates in the ground effect era. Margin of more than 20 seconds. That's enormous given how much the RB20 struggled with slow-speed corners. And even though they were pleased with their progress in the second half, they're still far from where they should be if they want to defeat Norris and possibly the Ferrari duo on pure merit. This has been discussed with Ven, who stated that if they keep going this way, there's no way he can win a championship on pure speed. And if we keep going this way, I won't be the champion next year. It's that easy. We really need to take action to be competitive the following season. As everyone knows, I have faith that the team can correct the balance issues from the previous season, and some of the things we couldn't change last year will be changed for next year. We also know that it must be better over curb bumps and slow corners, which are typically our weak points. If we lose, it will be on the basis of pure speed. I always keep the pressure on myself as well. In 2023, the team began the season with both cars back on the grid. But with steady progress, stable upgrades, and full reconstruction of the team's technical staff, you could see the difference in the car's performance. This statistic says it all in the first 9 races of 2023. One point is that the car was hardly steerable, but of course claiming that your rival had an illegal car for some parts of the season is a strong argument. McLaren only managed to score 29 points, but the Woking base squad scored 212 points in the first 9 races of 2024. the most points of any team on the grid. As a result, even Ven is the best person to know that some things need to change quickly if they want to remain competitive in the future. And one of those changes is strengthening his team's inner circles after promoting Lawson and firing Perez. Red Bull has demonstrated that they are prepared to return to their racing roots with REA. When discussing the upgrades that didn't work as expected in 2024 and explaining how crucial it is to fix this for the upcoming season, the Mercedes duo will undoubtedly cause some trouble in the majority of the races in the upcoming season. On the other hand, the integration of Lawson and Red Bull might be the second plan now that Verstappen will have heavyweight candidates to fight for the championship in 2025. Both McLaren and Ferrari drivers will be clear favorites. I saw some graphs at one point when we were looking at the data and noticed certain aerodynamic shifts in how we entered the corners and turned in, as well as in terms of ride heights which were different from the cars from the previous year. Verstappen didn't mince words as he added all plans for the new parts that were to come after China could go in the bin. The team essentially started all over again after that, and that was accurate. We were still winning races convincingly at the start of last season, but I already felt that the car's balance wasn't feeling the way I wanted it to. And now we're in a really interesting situation. I heard that I hadn't noticed those lines in those graphs before. So I said at the time that it was obvious that we needed to work on because the engineers obviously knew exactly what had changed. Red Bull will engage in a tough battle for the championship with McLaren and Ferrari. Needs to demonstrate that Lawson, who has only competed in 11 Formula One races, will be able to make up the gap that Perez created. This is a huge challenge, and Red Bull would need to concentrate on a number of things, such as the exodus of engineers that occurred when Ney left, and the future of Ain within the Austrian team, which is also uncertain given the new regulations. The Dutchman has hinted that he made it clear that if the helmet was out, he was out of the team as well. Do you think the Verstappen had to battle the illegal cars from McLaren for the majority of 2024 in order to win his 4th consecutive championship? I also think it was important that I said that, and I meant it. It wasn't a bluff. And they know that within the team too. Did I have doubts about my future at Red Bull at that stage? Well, the feeling wasn't quite 100%. There was a lot going on. But on the other hand, I don't think that you can just say, I'm leaving if something goes wrong. Title, and more importantly, what do you think the 2025 season holds in store for us? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and be sure to check on the video that is currently playing if you're curious about Mick Schumacher's possible significant position in Cadillac. Although Max Verstappen and Red Bull had defeated Norris and McLaren in a fierce battle for the Drivers' Championship, the 4-time world champion believes that several aspects of their rival's vehicle went slightly beyond the bounds of the law. Permitted by the FIA's rulebook, even though the governing body ruled that everything was lawful, some of their acts raised serious concerns about whether or not they had been taken with the intention of settling things down, rather than causing scandals and chaos in such a competitive environment. It is safe to say that Red Bull and McLaren have provided a very interesting season in 2024, even though in all honesty, a lot was left on the table and Norris could have done much more from his side to make it even more competitive and down to the wire. However, according to Verstappen, the majority of the season saw some irregularities in terms of the legality. If this is the reality, what is in store for us in 2025, and more importantly,